changing the words in work done by someone else without declaring to the reader whether it's intentional or not is not only a serious violation of South University academic integrity policy, but is actually against the law as well. This video is one of a series which has been developed to help you understand how to avoid plagiarism while writing your assignments, both in your discussion postings and in your papers during your time at South University. The purpose of this video is to define a reference, also to discuss the information that's to be included in a reference, and to review APA format regarding how the information should be arranged. So, I just want to talk about references themselves. If you're using material from other sources than your own, you need to make sure that you list those sources in a reference. References are used in all forms of writing assignments, and we need to list our sources not only when writing papers, but with any other written assignments that we have assigned to us. So let's say you're doing PowerPoint and you're using some external sources to complete your PowerPoint presentation. You need to cite your sources in that as well. Any type of discussion postings, as I mentioned earlier. So you're going to be, that's a big part of your class, is responding to your classmates, answering questions. You have to cite your references in those postings as well. So when writing an essay or a paper, a reference page at the end of the body of the paper is required. So list your sources on a separate page after the body of your paper with the title References centered at the top of the page. Make sure to use references, not works cited. And the reason is works cited is what you would use in MLA format, and that's a lot of used in a lot of English and humanities courses. But since you are taking a business course, if you're in the business program, you're going to use APA format throughout the whole program. So, now when I said there's a little bit of a difference, let's say you are posting an answer for your on the discussion board. If you'll notice, the discussion board doesn't allow you to really format a lot like Word does. So when you're posting on a discussion board, and you're using any kind of external sources, you still need to go ahead and list your references at the end. They just don't have to be, the title References doesn't have to be centered, just everything's left justified. So you would list reference or references, and then you would list them in the order after the post at the very end of your posting. So in Word format, you would center the word references, and you would have to indent your sources, and we will be looking at some examples shortly on that, and you'll understand what I mean. So, moving on, I'm going to give you some examples, because I think that the best way to show you how to do this properly is to give you examples, show you a format you can follow for your references, and then give you actual examples. And I think that will make it a lot clearer to you what is required of you when citing your references, and then your in-text citations in the next follow-up video. So let's talk about APA, and first we're going to look at citing a book chapter. So you are assigned, you have an assignment, and you have to find some external sources that support, maybe, support an argument, back up a claim, or just, finding a real life case study, stuff like that. So let's say you want to use a book, but you found some particular information, a specific information that you want to use in your assignment from a specific book chapter within a book. So, in that situation, what you would do is, the first example is, whoops, no, wasn't supposed to happen. The first example is the kind of a format guide, and then the second one is an actual example. So, for a format, you would list the author first, and that's their last name, first initial, and middle initial. Sometimes you can't find the middle initial. If you can't, just use the first initial, but usually they'll list both. And then the year. You'll notice in year, it's in parentheses and there's a period after it. It's always that, there's always a period after that parentheses. A lot of people miss that, so I just wanted to point that out. Your title of your the title of your chapter or entry, the editors. Now, this is editors A, B, C. There's not always 3 editors, and it's just if there is, it lists the format that you would use, but you don't, it may not always be the case. Title of your book. So, and that's in italics. Very important. That's in italics. So make sure that you always do, put the title of the book in italics when using a chapter of a book. And then the page number, location, and publisher. There's a colon between location and publisher. So let's move on to the actual example, which I think will make it even clearer. So we've got our surname of our author, our first initial, our middle initial, our year. The title of the chapter or entry is not in italics. And then we have our editors. There's 2 in this case. So we list our actual editors, and we still have this the editor's abbreviation here. Then we have the Science of Subjective Well-Being is the book title in italics. And then we have the page numbers. Period. Remember the period after the page number. And then we have New York, the location, and then we have the colon, and then the name of the publisher. And this is an example from the APA 6th edition manual as well. So that's how you place a reference for a chapter of a book. Now, let's say you might be doing a literature review or something. Let's say you are asked to read a few books, find some books on a particular subject, and summarize them. That's probably a good example. In that case, what you would do, you could, summarize the information. You would use the entire book as your reference. So we have a printed book, and we have an electronic version of a printed book. And since this is kind of it's not real involved with citations of a book, I didn't provide an actual example, but I did provide a template to follow for a printed book versus electronic book. So let's look at both of them. There's only one really significant difference, I think, here. We have a last name of the author, the first initial, the the middle initial, the year, and the title of the book, all the same. The title of the book is italicized as well. Difference is, in the printed book, you need to list the location and the publisher, just like we did before when we did the chapter of the book. But in an electronic version of the book, we list the URL.